Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm Michelle, and I'm so glad you're here. I want to read a little review from Apple from one of our listeners who says, "This podcast has truly helped me so much in my parenting. Michelle's parenting style supports a beautiful relationship with our children, and it's confirmed in the behavior my kids elicit. Parenting is about giving love and support to our children and also to ourselves. That's exactly what this podcast supports us in doing." Thank you so much for leaving this lovely review. I appreciate it, and I really appreciate everyone who does. I want to talk about a post that I had on Instagram last week where I cited some research from the University of Ohio, and they did a report that wanted to find out the most important factor in a child's success, meaning if a child is successful in life, what is the most important factor? Not the only factor, but the most important factor. And what this research says is that the most important factor is the mom's happiness or the primary caretaker's happiness. And it also cites that 90% of the time it's the mom that is the primary caretaker. So it is said that if the mother is happy, that's the number one factor in determining whether a child will be successful. Now, is it the only factor? No, absolutely not. But it is apparently, according to this work and this study, the most important factor. And to be really honest, that makes sense to me. Now, do I think it's the only thing that matters? Is the mother's happiness? No, but I do think it plays a huge part in how our children are doing. Because if you think about it, if you have a mom who's not happy, and not having an easy time in life, then it is going to affect the kids. It can't help but not. Now, does that mean that happiness needs to be measured in an everyday regimen, in an everyday litmus test? Do we have to be happy every single day? Does it mean that we can never have hard moments, that we can never show our emotions, that we can never go through moments of turmoil? No, that's totally unrealistic. That's not what the research is saying. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying and what the research says is that overall, if a mom has a happy demeanor and is happy in life in general, over the span of this relationship, which is, who knows, 50 years or more, will the child say, yeah, my mom was happy. She was pretty happy. And mostly in those formative years, 0 to 18, was my mom happy? Did we have a happy house? Or was it dark and depressive? Was it hard and tumultuous? Was it full of lots of yelling? Was it full of anger? Was it full of abuse? And of course, if a parent is doing well, the children are going to do well. But there are many other factors, right? The dad matters. Yes, it matters if there's a dad there or not. Is it the most important factor? No, but it matters. It matters if the dad is the primary caretaker. It matters if the mom is there in their lives. But also research tells us that children only need one well-adjusted adult to do well in this world. They don't necessarily need two. And so this research confirms that we need one well-adjusted person to do well in this world. But it doesn't mean it has to look perfectly. It also doesn't mean that connection doesn't matter, because we know with all the research that attachment and attunement matter, and that parent has to be attached and attuned. But can a parent who isn't doing well all the time be attached and attuned? Because I'll tell you what, when I'm not doing well, which I have many, many, many moments of not doing well, but I would still consider myself a happy person, and I would still consider us having a happy household. But I have many moments of heartache. And in those moments of heartache and in those moments of trials and tribulations, I have a really hard time connecting with my kids. And that makes a lot of sense because I'm not connected to myself. So if our happiness is also the most important thing, that gives us license to make ourselves happy. That gives us license to say, wow, I can prioritize myself over everything else because that's the most important thing when it comes to the well-being of my children. So, taking care of ourselves and putting ourselves first and making sure that we put on our mask before we put on the masks of our kids in case of a water landing or in case of the pressure in the cabin changing. When we do that, we're making sure that our house does better, it runs better, right? It makes complete sense. I got a lot of pushback. Well, oh, now you're making me feel guilty. Oh, now you're making me feel bad. So much pressure. Well, okay, you could look at it that way. You really could. But parenting is pressure, by the way. There's no extra pressure by saying that you have to be happy. There's extra pressure by saying that your happiness has to be every single day, all the time. But parenting is a lot of work and parenting is a lot of pressure and the stakes are really high. These are our children. So, with or without this study or this statement, the stakes are really high and parenting is really hard and it is a pressure cooker. But I thought in all of this research and in thinking about this idea, it gave me time to pause and say, "Oh, I wasn't able to do special time today. I wasn't able to, fully engage like I wanted to. I didn't spend as much time as I should have with them. I was really busy. I had to work a lot, but the times I was with them, I was happy. I was, having a good time." There's something to be said for that. Because if I was disengaged and not present and not spending the time, and then the moments that I was able to be with my kids, I was down and depressed and having a hard time and, not being able to uplift myself, well, wouldn't that be even worse? And isn't it okay to focus on ourselves as a way to help our family? And isn't that killing two birds with one stone, so to speak? Like a lot of people talk about reparenting, like we're going to reparent ourselves. And so hard to reparent yourself while you're also parenting. But isn't that the gateway to a happy home? And isn't that a gateway to helping your kids flourish in this world? Is by focusing on yourself and that it really is the most important thing, and that the reparenting or the finding of yourself is even more important than the parenting to some degree. I don't know. I think it's just a way to look at like we are very tightly, deeply linked to our kids, and we are with them all the time, every single day at some point or another. And when they're really young, maybe a lot more. So, whatever is going on for us, it is directly linked to our children. They feel what's happening with us, they vibe off us. I'll tell you what, Esme is deeply linked to me. I don't know if it's because of her strong willed, sensitive nature. I don't know if it's because she's my oldest and my first. I don't know if it's because we had a rocky start. I don't know exactly why, but that child can, if I'm even the slightest bit off and I'm not even alluding to it, she knows. She can read me. We are deeply linked. So I have to make myself happy and better and work on myself and do more with myself because she's feeling me no matter what. She's on to me no matter what. And so if I'm off my game, if I'm off my self care game, she knows and she can tell. And immediately it rocks our connection. Kids need us for survival. That's how they're wired. Kids are wired to be connected to us because in their reptilian brain, they believe they can't survive without us, right? They need us for shelter and they need us for food and they need us for love and attention and protection and all of those things. And so if the relationship becomes wobbly, their survival is also wobbly. Now, is this really the case in modern day? Probably not, but I bet it pings their reptilian brain to believe that it's wobbly. And for kids like Esme, when it feels wobbly, she starts to lash out. She starts to get aggressive. She starts to get mean. She starts to present in those ways. And so I might not have to do anything except for be in a place of emotional disrepair or emotional turmoil. And then I start to shrink away because I'm trying to protect myself and she can feel it. And so she begins to lash out because she's scared. She's in fight, flight, or freeze. She needs me. And so we can get in this loop of just me like not taking care of myself. And that's why I think taking care of ourselves is the most important thing that nearly exists in parenting. And this is what this research is saying, is that it is the most important factor for a child's success overall. Again, I'm going to have my moments. And again, I'm going to have my moments and Esme's going to feel me and she's going to lash out, and that's okay. We're going to recover from those moments. But I hope I have more moments of being able to be connected to her than I have moments of being disconnected from her. But we're never going to do it perfectly. We're always going to have disconnected moments. We're always going to have unhappy times. But the other research says that you only have to do it right 35% of the time. So if you are happy 35% of the time, then you're already succeeding. I would probably say most of us are happy more than that. We're not looking for perfection. We're not even looking for, ideals. I think this whole idea is to plant the seed that we need to take care of ourselves and we want to take care of ourselves to take care of our families. But that also doesn't look perfectly, and that there'll be really hard moments, but that we also can come out of those hard moments and have happiness. Life can be happy. We don't need to be worried that, we can't get all the listening tools perfectly, that we're not doing special time enough, that we, can't listen to all the feelings. We're not doing empathy the way we want to. If we're coming with a well-adjusted and happy demeanor, that's a huge part of what parenting is all about and having successful kids. So don't worry that you're all constantly messing your kids up or that you're doing something wrong, especially with this post. Believe that overall you're trying and you want to be happy. And even if you've gone through huge traumas, and even if you have PTSD, and even if you are struggling, you're working to do better. Of course you are, because you care about yourself and you care about your kids. And without that connection to yourself, you can't be connected to your kids. And again, you're going to have moments of disconnection. It's just going to happen. It's inevitable. But we hope that we have a happy home overall. And that's what we're looking for, because we're modeling what happiness is, right? And then we can have children who are also going to know and glean that happiness from us. Not toxic positivity, but real, genuine happiness that happens when it should, and hard moments that also happen when they should. All right. I hope this was helpful in some way or another. If you don't know where the post is, it is from September 22nd, and you can take a look at it and read some of the comments and kind of get in there and see what you think. All right. Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast, and I hope to see you next time.